We will not be held responsible for any hearing impairments or damage caused to you from excessive exposure to this sound.
Well, it is August 10th, 2012. This is Sackheads Radio. I am your co-host, Sean, with...
Why are you pointing at me?
Because I can never remember your name.
Oh, I'm Clint.
How's it going, brother?
You know what? I think it's hilarious. I just set it up in this chat room because I'm testing to make sure this works.
Right.
That you always have to set this technical crap up for me.
I don't mind doing it. The problem is when I get halfway through it and you just, shut down, you're like, yeah, I have no idea what you're doing, so I don't care, and then turn on. That's a little frustrating.
At least I don't throw any more computer monitors.
That was embarrassing for everybody. So I am going to hit a button right now.
Why?
Oh, no. Ready?
Why didn't you... That's our breaking news alert.
It is a Sackheads News breaking news.
That is so great.
This is just getting ridiculous. For this breaking news, I'm going to send it to Clint.
What are you going to send it to me for?
Well, I'm not doing it.
Where's Vanessa?
She's off tonight.
Awesome. Hey, so a couple hours ago
on ABC. Sorry, go ahead.
So a story on ABC News that tomorrow Mitt Romney will be announcing his vice presidential running mate.
And that is breaking news.
The speculation is that it will be
Representative
Paul Ryan.
Okay, just wanted to make sure.
It's going to take place in Virginia in front of the USS Wisconsin, which
is why a lot of people are speculating that it's going to be Paul Ryan.
Because he is in D.C. while Congress is in session, and the fact that the ship is the Wisconsin, which is obviously where Ryan is a representative from, people believe to be symbolic. And he was on the short list, so that's the buzz right now. That's the breaking news.
Yeah, and, we talked about this when it first came out. We aren't entirely thrilled about his timing for...
Well, hang on a second before we go down that road.
Okay.
I want to say something.
Oh, wow. Go ahead. What do you want to say?
You just took the wind out of my sails now.
Oh, goodness. How did I take the wind out of your sails?
I'm crushed. Look, it's you're right. The timing of this we weren't thrilled with for a few reasons. The thing is, the convention seems to give usually the big boost, the big push for the particular candidates. And so you and I have talked about this before. If you have Mitt Romney announcing his vice presidential choice prior to the convention, well, what's the point of watching the convention? It's not going to be very exciting, or maybe it will, but people are just going to hear various people up there speaking and so forth. There's not going to be any real earth-shattering realizations or news or anything coming out of the convention, probably. So I think by announcing his choice about a week and a half,
it's premature.
It's premature, and that I think he's going to lose some of that bounce that he potentially could get coming out of the convention.
No, yes and no. And like I said, when we talked about this before, I see that aspect of it too. I think going into the convention, he wants people to pay attention, and that might be one reason why he's doing it now, to give it a week to kind of digest and everyone to kind of get on board. If they don't know who Paul Ryan is, time kind of figure it out.
No, you're wrong. It sucks. I figured out what I was going to say before.
Well, can I finish my thought?
No, I see the synapses attempting to fire over there, and the lights in the room are dimming.
But, I look at it this way.
Wait, hang on a second. We reached out to two people when this news broke, when we learned of it.
We did reach out.
And I can't believe that in the midst of our little banter that it slipped my mind.
No, we did reach out to the Romney campaign immediately. We also reached out to Representative Ryan's office. We got no response from either.
Well, now, to be fair, when this broke, Romney campaign's voicemail box was already full. I don't know why. I have no idea. And Representative Ryan's office was closed. I don't know why either.
I have no idea why.
However, a tweet was set out to both of them directly,
inviting them on to call in tonight just if they wanted to talk about something, anything, not necessarily the announcement.
But that we did have a particular question for them.
Absolutely. No, we just said a question.
No, I just said a question.
Amazingly.
Boxers or briefs? I mean, really, the world wants to know.
I want to know how relaxed you are if you're going to be the president and vice president.
Because most people think Republicans are uptight.
And we're not. We're not.
No, we're not. Oh, God, no.
And going back to my thought before you went on the whole boxes of briefs.
I apologize. I'm all over the place tonight.
And
I just landed again.
I think it's
this time it was a MiG.
I think it's one of those things where he's trying to get people interested in the convention to figure if he announces now. Because I can almost see it going both ways. I can see why people will be like, I'll just wait for the news after the convention. Whereas if Paul Ryan's announced now, he doesn't really say a lot tomorrow, and that'll give time for the week and a half or however long it is exactly for people to build up, get a little bit of steam, make the announcement, blah, 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 get it out there, kind of like how we promote the show every single week. It could work a little bit. It could backfire, obviously, which is your point. So
I do. I just think that they lose some of that balance. I think they lose some of their viewership going into the convention. I really do. Now, on the flip side of that, I think Paul Ryan is an outstanding choice for him.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think that he's going to bring some of that conservative base back to the Romney side of the camp. I think that he is very much into, at least it seems to be, going back to the founding principles of our country, which is something we talk about. His philosophy of government seems to be one of principled leadership, good moral character, bringing God back into our country, and going back to those core conservative values. So I think it's a very smart move.
He's fiscally conservative.
He is, yeah. He's very conservative all the way around. He's a well-rounded conservative candidate, and I think that brings more balance to Romney and brings conservatives back to the Romney camp as opposed to maybe sitting out the election or not being excited. I think it excites them. What one of the potential downfalls is for Romney, though, is now he's going to be in a position where if Paul Ryan puts forward something that's very conservative, an idea, makes a statement, something like that, as his vice presidential running mate or as his vice president, he's going to have to stand with him and defend that. So that may force Romney
to be more conservative.
Well,
and maybe that's part of the plan. You know what I mean? Maybe that'll give him a reason in people's minds to come out more conservative. I mean, he's not we've said this a million times, he's not a hard conservative. He's more towards the middle. And maybe that's the plan is you get Paul Ryan in there, you get that conservative group over, Paul Ryan says something conservative, and all Romney has to say is, hey, I chose him for that reason. I chose him for his conservative values.
Well, now I think
Charger?
I think you're right. Here's something interesting. We talked about losing some of that finesse or some of that bounce coming out of the convention. There is one thing that I don't know how many people are really looking at. I know it's kind of out there as a discussion point, but Ron Paul has a lot of delegates.
He has a ton of delegates
at the convention, and the RNC Rule 40 allows for a plurality of delegates from a particular state. You have to have 5 states and a plurality in those states in order to have this representation or whatever in there. Now he has delegates that may be committed to Romney because Romney may have won the primary or whatnot, but that's for their presidential pick. They're not committed for a vice presidential pick.
Not at all.
So if you have all of these Ron Paul delegates vote for him on the convention floor for vice president, well, now you can force a vote on the convention floor, a roll call vote, which is usually, I guess, real symbolic and is very quick. But now you can actually draw that out, have a true roll call vote. And my question is this, and it's unclear as far as maybe I'm just not reading the right things or interpreting it right. But what happens if Romney chooses Paul Ryan, but the vote on the floor of the convention chooses somebody else? What if an outside name is reintroduced into the campaign, or what if it's Ron Paul?
Right.
I mean, I think if Ron Paul is the vice presidential nominee based upon the convention, I think Romney's done.
Well, yeah, and that'll definitely cause a major rift. And I'll tell you, people can say what they want about Ron Paul. He has a decent following, and they will vote for him no matter what.
And a very loyal following.
Very loyal. People that are Ron Paul, people love Ron Paul. There's no kind of middle of the road on him.
Right.
I like Ron Paul. I don't know if he'd be an outstanding president because I don't agree with everything, and I just went against everything I just said.
What are you talking about right now?
But I think he is I think he's a principled man, which we talk about a lot in our interviews and on our show. We think that's important, where I don't have to agree with everything that comes out of his mouth, but I agree with his principles. I agree with how he represents his state and the country in his job in Congress. I think he's an amazing man, very, very small little flip-flops. He stands to who he is. He doesn't apologize for who he is. He doesn't pander to groups just because. So I can see the draw with Ron Paul, but that brings us to the convention. Will this cause a split? And it could. That split could really, like you said, do the whole GOP run in this year.
No, I think it can. And I like Ron Paul for those same reasons. I like him as a person. I like him. I don't necessarily agree with everything or even most of what he has to say, but I do like what he stands for. And even though I can disagree with some of his policies or whatnot, doesn't mean I dislike him or I don't want him as a particular candidate. I personally probably would not pick him if I had my choice. I really like Paul Ryan. I think he's a very smart choice. I would love to see him as the vice presidential pick, and I would love for them to win because in 8 years, I would really like to see Paul Ryan run for president.
Yeah, I think he'd be an amazing president. I think this would be a good chance for America to really see Paul Ryan. I think if you're a conservative, you know who Paul Ryan is. You know he's the representative from Wisconsin. I think independents might know about him a little bit. If you don't follow politics too closely, you don't know about him a lot. He's pushed a lot of real conservative fiscal bills in. He's stuck to his principles. I mean, he's a good guy. So I agree with you. I think this would be a great chance to see. And, if they get in, if they beat the president now in November, you're right. I think even after 4 years, if for some reason it's not working out with Romney, you could see them push him to the top and, go that route. Or if they get 8 out of it, you could definitely see he's young enough. I mean, he's, 42 years old? So 8 years is only going to be 50. He's definitely young enough to stick around. And
he absolutely is. One of his downfalls is I think he came to public life or won his first office at age 28. He didn't spend a lot of time in the private sector. Mm-hmm. However, I look at his voting record and I look at his philosophy of governing and the things he's done and the things he's stood for. And although he hasn't spent a lot of time in the private sector, he understands the core values of our country. He understands economics. I mean, he majored in econ in college.
Right.
He understands economics. He understands how individual liberty and individual freedom is paramount by limiting the federal government in our society, and also by trying to get those tax dollars out of the bloated government back into the individual's wallet so that they can invest and grow the economy. And, I mean, they earn the money too, but we don't need to have a whole tax discussion right now.
No, we actually get into a little bit with our interview coming up later on, so we can leave some of that alone.
You know what? I really enjoyed that interview.
No, we did interview today. We interviewed Joe Kaufman, who's running for Congress in the 23rd. We're staying in Florida. We become the battleground for the 23rd District in Florida, and whoever wins that...
We need to get a 23 sticker and put it on our website.
You know what? We probably should. That's a great idea. I'll work on that.
Thank you.
Whoever wins the primary and their primary is going
to owe us a huge really nothing at all whatsoever.
But they will go up against Debbie Wasserman Schultz, the chair for the DNC, and the current congresswoman from that district. So that's a big seat. A lot of people are watching that. Joe is gracious with his time today. He gave us plenty of time. I think that everyone will enjoy that interview. So we're going to play that shortly here after the break. But
I want to say something, and I said it once before. I didn't necessarily agree with everything that he said, obviously. However, I feel he was honest.
Yeah.
He was able to articulate his positions and support his positions through facts and give an intelligent, educated argument or point of view and answer. And I believe just we only spent an hour or so with him. From the limited time we discussed with him, I believe him to be a man of principles. Again, just based on that very limited conversation we have, I got a feeling that he was being honest and so forth. And I genuinely enjoyed the conversation we had with him. Again, don't agree with him on everything. That's okay. That's good to have, I think, in our society. But I enjoyed talking to him.
No, I did too. We went into the Middle East discussion for a little bit at the beginning.
It was really interesting. I didn't want to stop talking about it.
Ridiculously knowledgeable man. I know it was hard for us to get off that because he brought up such great points and we had such a great conversation about it, discussing Iran, Israel. You'll see if you go to his website, he's done a lot of work for and a lot of history in it. He's very knowledgeable. He knew what was going on. So that was a lot of fun. And then we got into, obviously, the election. And then I think we bounced back a few times to the Middle East here and there, as we have a tendency to do. We're all over the road. But it's a fun interview. So you're going to hear that coming up here at the top of the hour. And
I got to say, one other thing, I want to get back to the Paul Ryan story for a second, if I can.
Yeah, no, I was going to go that way anyhow.
Perfect. Again, nothing has been said. This is all speculation. But this is kind of the direction that the buzz is right now, that it seems to be heading to be Paul Ryan as the nominee.
Are you going to call it?
No.
Oh, okay. I think you're going to call it like on the election show.
No, I don't want to call it. You know why?
Why?
Because I really hope that they don't announce anything tomorrow. I really hope they were like, hey, we were just totally just kidding, guys.
And Romney would be like, hey, you know how everyone says I don't have a sense of humor? Gotcha. Just walk away.
Isn't this a great battleship? Just wanted to see it.
Yeah, you guys really thought I was just pale and gray, huh? Yep, didn't think so.
Or he chooses somebody else.
I choose some guy named Ben.
Yeah, Paul Ryan's like, I choose Sackhead Clint.
Hey, I would absolutely be there for it. Ooh, is that what we're calling right now? Are we calling tomorrow morning's announcement, 9 o'clock Eastern Time, that instead of Paul Ryan, candidate Mitt Romney will call for Sackhead Clint as his vice president?
Are you kidding me? He didn't even respond to our tweet for an interview.
No, that is 100%.
Yeah, that's
true.
100%.
Well, yeah, because he's
accurate.
vetting you. You were on the phone with him. He couldn't answer his tweet.
Now after this announcement comes
during the pre-production show, I got it all now.
Wait,
that's why his phone was busy when we called.
Stop putting things together.
I can't even.
This is an international internet show. We don't need to blow any secrets here. We are going to reach out to Representative Ryan and Governor Romney
again
after the announcement. We're going to reach out to them again. So
it's kind of a big deal. It really is. It's kind of a big deal for us to reach out to them.
Who do we have next week? No, we're not going to say yet.
Well, it may not be next week, but we're talking right now.
No, let's not say it. Don't say it right now. No.
Tease it.
End of the show.
Oh, all right, fine. We'll tell you at the
end of the show.
It's a huge one for us. It'll be a lot of fun.
I'm actually really excited about it.
I'm really excited, and we're working on a couple more candidates. Hey, if you have a candidate in your district that's running for federal office or even state office,
or even local office,
yeah, if it's somebody who
or just somebody you want to talk to,
if it's somebody you think other people need to know about, and you'd love to have them on the show, you've heard our interviews, and you want to have them run the gauntlet with us, so to speak, email us fanmail, FANMAIL, at sackheadsradio.com, or you can call us. The phone number is 877-308-10. You know what? I got all that wrong. It's on our website, www.sackheadsradio.com. I can't believe I can't remember our phone number. Dude, you know what?
You've had a long day today.
I did, but
by the way,
we started running when we got the text about the potential announcement tomorrow with the Ryan interview. We had a new segment that we were going to do tonight. We had a couple other things that all got kind of pushed off the table because we were running around trying to confirm sources and everything. So I did get a little jacked up.
You got a lot jacked up. And I will say, because that one email we got was absolutely hilarious, we're not interviewing the Geico spokesperson lizard thing.
You know what? That would be a lot of fun, though.
That would be great.
So, yeah, if there's somebody, come on, there's got to be somebody you want us to talk to. I don't care.
Did you just say, come on?
Yeah.
Are you kidding me?
I don't care if it's a cranky neighbor. Whatever. Just send us an email.
Oh, let me at some cranky neighbor. Please.
Hopefully it'll be a liberal cranky neighbor.
Oh.
So here's what we're going to do. Let's take a quick break. We'll set up the interview when we come back, and then you'll listen to the interview with Joe Kaufman. Does that work for you? I don't care. I'm starting it now. We'll be back in a minute.
Hey, this is Sackhead Clint. We're fortunate enough to have our friend Vanessa do our news briefs. If you like her news briefs, she is a voiceover talent. Check out Platinum Vocal Cords. She has over 15 years radio and voiceover experience. Graduated Northwestern State University with a liberal arts degree. Don't let that scare you, folks. She is a true sackhead. Please check her out. Again, that's PlatinumVocalCords.com. Thank you.
Hey guys, it's Sean from Sackheads Radio. I want to talk to you a minute about our friends over at HomefrontHugs.com. They're an amazing organization of volunteers who take their time, effort, and money to take care of our troops overseas as they serve our great nation. HomefrontHugs.com. You can donate, write letters to troops, adopt a troop, you name it, you can do it. Help those wonderful folks who protect our freedoms. Go to HomefrontHugs.com. Tell them Sackheads Radio sent you.
Hey guys, it's Sean from Sackheads Radio. I know I've said it before. Check out our friends at conservativeoutcry.net, but I really mean it. If you want interesting and exciting political commentary and analysis, that is the place to get it. Different, always spot on, always truthful, never pulling a punch. conservativeoutcry.net. Tell Rooster to get Bulldog back on and that Sackheads Radio sent you. And also, coming soon, the Sackheads Radio Forum on conservativeoutcry.net.
Hey, this is Sackhead Clint. I want to take this opportunity to thank all the wingnut leaders throughout the world, to give our men and women of the armed forces a job, as well as all the anarchists, terrorists, and Occupy folks that give our men and women in uniform on the home front, firefighters, law enforcement personnel, and first responders, job security here in the States as well. So thank all you wingnuts out there. This is Sackhead Clint saying have a good day.
3, 2.
I love how you're still doing the countdown. We discussed previously that it's completely unnecessary.
Hey, now welcome back our two professionals, Clint and Sean.
So I always realize how much I hate my laugh. It's one of those things when I hear it, I'm like, that is awful. Why would anybody listen to me?
That's why we only have 3 listeners.
Yeah.
Just so you know.
No, you know what? We've been getting pretty good feedback lately, and I really appreciate it. I can't say thank you enough for those who listen, and we don't get into this as much as we should because, well, we hate talking about it. But we've had some pretty good listeners, and we're getting some good feedback on Twitter, so thank you very much. Now the interview.
Oh, wait, no, hang on.
What?
Are we going to try and contact Paul Ryan after this announcement if he is
Yeah.
You know what? I want to try and contact him either way, even
Yeah,
if he's not announced as the vice presidential running mate.
No,
I want to say, hey, so what did you think of all that build-up?
Man, your Twitter must have went through the roof that night. No, I do. I'm going to reach out to the Romney campaign. I will reach out to Paul Ryan, and then we will reach out to, if it's not for some reason Paul Ryan, we'll reach out to whoever it is. We'll try to get them to come on. I definitely want to know. Like I said, I think if it's Paul Ryan, it's going to be a big boost for him. I really do.
I agree, and I'm really excited about our upcoming interview.
I am. So we're going to play the interview right now. It's Joe Kaufman, who's running for Congress, 23rd District of Florida. It was a fun interview. I learned a lot. Did you learn anything?
No, I absolutely knew everything. No, it was well done. Let's just get into it. Let's let them listen.
Absolutely. So here's our interview with Joe Kaufman.
Hey, how you doing? It's Sean from Sackheads Radio.
And Clint, hi.
And on the phone with us right now, we have Joe Kaufman, who is running for the 23rd congressional seat against, well, the other primary candidates, and the end goal is Debbie Wasserman Schultz. How you doing, Joe?
Great. Thank you so much.
And your primary is right around the corner, is it not?
Yep. It's actually taking place as we speak for early voting, but August 14th is the main voting day, Tuesday.
Excellent. So why don't you tell everyone a little bit about yourself?
Well, my profession is I do counterterrorism research, writing, and lectures for various think tanks. I've been involved in getting terrorist charities shut down and individuals put in prison. Previously, I was a Broward co-chairman of the Steve Forbes for President campaign, where I was among the first to push for a national flat tax to replace the current income tax code. I was special assistant to Larry Klayman, the founder of Judicial Watch, and we handled a lot of important cases, a lot of high-profile cases, such as we represented all the Cubans that were mistreated by the Clinton administration during the siege on the Elian Gonzalez home, and other cases, high-profile cases as well. And today, 10 years ago, I got involved in the counterterrorism field to protect the country that I grew up in and love, and it was shortly after 9/11 that I did that. And today, I'm doing the same. I'm running for United States Congress to protect the country that I love and would die for.
Now, I noticed you said you've done a lot of work in the counterterrorism industry and so forth, helping various agencies. Is there a particular focus in the terrorism realm or spectrum that you focus on, Islamic extremism or some of the domestic terrorist groups? Do you have a concentration, or is it just terrorism in general?
Well, for the most part, it was going after the American organizations that were connected to terrorist groups overseas. But I'll tell you, I just had an article published where I discussed how Tehran, Iran, is sending flights to Caracas, Venezuela, flights containing members of Hezbollah, the terrorist organization that's based in Lebanon. And they're settling in towns on the northern tip of Venezuela and Colombia, the adjoining northern tips of Colombia and Venezuela, and they're actually taking over two towns in that area. And recently, the State Department had admitted that there were at least 100 Hezbollah cells inside the United States. A lot of people don't understand that when we talk about illegal immigrants coming over the borders, a lot of the times they're terrorists coming over the borders, and that's they're coming. Actually, a lot of Hezbollah are coming over the border from Colombia and Venezuela into the United States, and they're not here to do any work or anything of that matter. They're here for nefarious reasons.
Yeah, I think one of the things that the left tries to push is that when we talk about immigration reform and controlling the borders and stuff like that, they make it out that the right wants to just keep illegals from coming over to work, and that's not necessarily the point. We're worried about everyone who's coming over the border, especially the ones that want to do damage to our people inside our country.
And the other scary thing is we know that what happened in Beslan, Russia, and Mumbai, India, were dry runs because they've said it for what they hope to accomplish here in the United States. So the fact that they have a clear path from Central America up through Mexico through our open borders is a major concern for me, and I'm sure you see that as a major concern also. How legitimate or how realistic do you think that threat is, given the current situation with what's happening over in the Middle East and so forth, and the immigration situation, as you just kind of touched on?
Well, certainly the worst-case scenario would be if Iran got its hands on nuclear weapons and they somehow made their way somehow into the United States in the form of something like a suitcase bomb to one of these Hezbollah cells that's in the U.S. As well, there's a problem if Iran or if Israel or the United States were to attack Iran's nuclear facilities. The question is, would these cells inside the United States respond within the U.S.? And so it's a major concern, and it's something that I'm certainly concerned about. But regardless of that, we can't allow Iran to have nuclear weapons.
No, I couldn't agree more with that statement. Obviously, a nuclear Iran would not only be threatening to us, but obviously Israel is the first thing that comes to mind.
Yeah, I want to get back to something real quick. I know I know the focus, what you just said, was on the nuclear weapons, and I think that's a threat that's on most people's mind. I think something that a lot of people don't think of would be an active shooter, executed type attack going into a siege situation like you saw in Beslan and Mumbai, as we just discussed. How likely of a scenario do you think that is here?
Well, one would have thought that there would have been, attacks, and thank God there weren't inside the United States, but at least major attacks after 9/11, and certainly the government's been on the alert. But that scenario has been on people's minds since 9/11 occurred, and I don't think anybody would be surprised if something like that were to occur, given the situation, a dangerous situation in the Middle East, the fact that all these Islamist groups are taking over countries in the Middle East, the fact that there's unrest in Pakistan and Afghanistan, even after all these years that we've been over there fighting to promote peace in the area. So I think the scenario is possible. Thank God that Homeland Security and the FBI, it seems they're on top of most things. But we did have the Times Square bomber who thank God his bomb didn't go off. But if it did, it would have caused a lot of damage and a lot of fear throughout the country, and as well, it would have had a harm to our finances inside the United States. Remember when 9/11 occurred, the World Trade Center, of course, was destroyed. The world financial markets had shut down for 3 days. So it has a drastic effect on the economy and also on the psyche of the country. And I think that scenario is highly possible because of the situation overseas.
Okay, and I know you credited Homeland Security and the FBI, and I'd like to think that I think local law enforcement also plays a major role on that, kind of being the eyes and ears for what's going on and information going up to the federal government. Would you say that's accurate also?
Absolutely, and unfortunately, when a place when an organization like the NYPD does its job and monitors potential terrorist fronts, as they have been doing, because of political correctness, they get attacked for doing so. But they're on top of the situation, and I would like to think that law enforcement all around the country is on top of the situation. Whether it's politically correct or not, you have to do what's going to protect the public.
Absolutely. And Joe, I'm sure you've heard a couple of our interviews before. One of the things we like to get to is we like to know who the candidates are as people. I mean, anybody can read web pages and give us talking points. So we like to get to know actual personality traits and who our candidates are, because one of the things that we talk about on our show is we want to elect leaders who are principled, who have core values, not just party line talking points.
Well, I would say this, that I've been involved in politics since I was a kid, when I campaigned for Ronald Reagan with my grandmother, who fell in love with Ronald Reagan and Jack Kemp, and constantly hammered those two names into my head growing up. And I got involved in the college Republicans, and I've been fighting for the conservative cause my entire life. So when I say I'm a fiscal, social, and military conservative, I say that with pride and with an understanding of all of those issues, because I've grown up with those issues. I didn't just come along one day and say, hey, I'm going to run for Congress and I'm going to adopt all these stances from the Republican Party or the conservative cause. I believe in this cause, and I would die for this cause.
Well, and having said that, so what do you think the job of a congressman would be with all those traits? How would you apply that to the job itself?
Well, certainly, first and foremost, you're there to vote on important matters, and I'll tell you, voting-wise, such as like when the debt ceiling vote occurred, I would have voted no, because I would have understood that the debt was going to go up close to $10 trillion, and that the spending cuts that they were going to make in that so-called compromise was going to be just over $2 trillion or $2.5 trillion. And if you do the math, you can see that there's $7 trillion of unaccounted for extra debt. So I think first and foremost, you're put in power, or you're put in office to vote on the issues that are important to the country and that help the country. But second of all, you need to be a voice for the people. One of the big things that I'm passionate about is spreading freedom. Not just standing for freedom inside the United States, and it's going, every day it's going away from us, but also for pushing for freedom overseas, for standing up for those political prisoners that are going to prison just because of their political beliefs, such as in places like Cuba or Venezuela, even in China and Russia and even Iran. There are people being put in prison for no reason except that they believe they believe in something that's other than what the government believes. And we should strive to be the light for freedom here from the United States to the rest of the world.
Well, and I think you highlight something that a lot of people in this country take for granted is, we have all these freedoms, and even though there are some that try to take a lot of it away, we don't embrace it enough, and the people of this country don't embrace their freedom enough oftentimes, and they just look at it, like it's a given, and it's not a given. I think people forget that if you look overseas, as quickly as it's there, it can be gone. And did you have a question, Clint?
I agree that America should be the beacon of light for the rest of the world. And I mean, Alexis de Tocqueville talked about it in Democracy. His book he wrote. But I'm curious that in these tough fiscal times, how do we do that? How do we ensure that these other countries are not putting political prisoners in prison or committing human rights violations? How much blood and treasure do we put in from our end, especially in these fiscal times, to mitigate these circumstances going on in these foreign countries? And at what point, if any, do we cease our involvement? I mean, where's the line? When is it, we need to be involved at this point, and when is it, we're operating within another sovereign country's borders?
Well, number one, as Congressman, I'll be outspoken on the issue of freedom for political prisoners overseas, and I think that voice needs to be heard in Congress. And so many times our congressmen either are ignorant of the issues or they just ignore the situation. Either way, they're wrong. But number two, I'll give you an example of how we can get involved and how it would save lives instead of lose lives, but how we need to take action nonetheless. In a place like Iran, before this whole Arab Spring took place throughout the Middle East, there were Iranians, pro-American Iranians, who took to the streets and were calling for the overthrow of Ahmadinejad and the mullahs. And what did the Obama administration do? What was their response?
Nothing.
They turned their back on those individuals. They did exactly nothing. And now we're faced with a situation where we're dealing with a potential war against Iran, possibly a situation where Iran's going to have nuclear weapons. We could have averted that entire situation if we at least helped those individuals. And I think in doing so, in taking the actions necessary to help those individuals, we could have averted a World War III. We could have averted losing lives in the future. But now we're faced with potential war.
So you said we could have averted a World War III. Do you think we're headed towards that? Do you think we're headed in that direction?
Well, I would say that if Iran gets its hands on nuclear weapons, it will change the course of the world for the worse. Because whether they use those weapons or not, it will have a drastic effect on the world. And I would also say to your audience, don't think that they won't use them. When they scream death to America from the Iranian shores and death to Israel, and talk about eradicating the Jewish state, and I think we need to take them at their word. But we no doubt have to stand up against Iran. But we could have averted war. We could have averted it if we had at least listened to those that were speaking out against their government. But what did we do instead? We ignored them, but instead we helped this Arab Spring take over these countries like Egypt, which was no doubt a cold peace partner, but a peace partner nonetheless. And now we have the Muslim Brotherhood in control of the area. We have this president, Mohammed Morsi, in Egypt who says that Cairo is not the capital of Egypt, but Jerusalem is the capital of Egypt, and he's willing to take a group of martyrs into Jerusalem and take Jerusalem over by force and die as martyrs if they have to. Now we're facing with fanatics in government, where Hamas is taking over the Sinai, and now Israel is forced to build a fence between southern Israel and the Sinai to keep the Hamas from coming over the border and attacking Israelis, where they're building bomb factories in the Sinai and such. So we're facing a horrible situation in the Middle East, and it's all because this president, Barack Obama, didn't stand up to the Iranians, and now is standing for our enemies.
And we agree with you on how that scenario plays out. And we even did a show on Israel and Jerusalem, and how the Obama administration won't even acknowledge Jerusalem as the capital of Israel. But getting back to the point and what you said earlier, I'm curious. You indicated that we could have avoided a World War III. How do you see that scenario potentially playing out to where we would have a situation, as you indicated, where we could be faced with a World War III?
Well, the scenario is very easy. If Israel or the United States goes into Iran and bombs Iranian nuclear facilities and probably winds up killing a number of civilians that are housed above these facilities, certainly Hezbollah is going to respond and attack Israel from Lebanon in northern Israel. And as well, if we find that there are Hezbollah cells inside the United States, which we know for a fact there are, and they wind up taking action inside the United States, and then when you have places like Russia and China who openly side with Iran and with Syria, you really have the potential for a world war. It's not just words and it's not just rhetoric. All the writing's on the wall. And if we allow Iran to get nuclear weapons, that's where we're headed, and it's possibly with an attack on Iran, we're headed in that direction as well. But no doubt, we have to do the right thing. We have to stop Iran from getting nuclear weapons. It will do terrible harm to the world, certainly to Israel and America. It was just over a week ago that Iran had played war games. They were testing missiles, which they openly admitted to the media would be able to hit U.S. bases and Israel. Just think of the fact that if there were a nuclear warhead attached to one of those missiles, the type of damage that they would cause to Israelis and/or Americans.
Oh yeah,
so,
and that's a very realistic. Absolutely, and that's a very realistic scenario I could see playing out as you just indicated that. So.
Yeah, well, and I think it's interesting. I think it was yesterday or the day before, Israeli intelligence released a statement saying that the Iranians are much closer to having nuclear weapon capability than previously thought.
And the U.S. finally acknowledged it.
And the U.S. is finally acknowledging it, and we're finding out now that maybe our intelligence was a little bit behind the eight ball, and that's a scary situation. We don't know a lot. We have the greatest intelligence. Israel might be a little bit better than ours, and Britain's right up there. But we have a tendency to be behind the eight ball with Iran, and only because we don't have the ability to get in there, especially like the Israelis do.
Well, imagine if our intelligence community were handcuffed by this administration. Oh wait, never mind, they are.
But I think the big question is whether our intelligence knew that or not, and if they did know that, were they withholding that from the Israelis? And waiting for the election for the American, the election inside the United States to occur, so that they, averted any type of war before the election, so that Barack Obama would somehow have a better chance of winning than if action were to take place prior to the American election. But I would say, I've said over and over again that really the time period is dwindling between the this talk of sanctions and such, and when Iran actually does get its hands on nuclear weapons. And we hear from the administration over and over again that we need this diplomacy, we need potential sanctions. But I would say, as I've said in so many of my primary debates, sanctions don't work. Rarely in the course course of history have sanctions ever worked, if they did in those times. They didn't work with Iraq twice. They didn't work with North Korea. You know, we were talking about stopping North Korea from getting nuclear weapons, and they thought, well, we're going to put these sanctions and more sanctions on North Korea. Well, what ended up happening? North Korea today has one of the largest nuclear arsenals in the world. If we keep on talking about more time and diplomacy and these phony sanctions placed on Iran that only hurt the Iranian people that we should have helped before, then Iran's going to have nuclear weapons.
Well,
and I keep on saying it over and over again that the time for talk is over and the time for action is now. And some of my primary opponents have called me a radical for saying that. But the truth is that today we need some Churchills in this world. And I understand what goes on in the Middle East, and I understand the threat, and I know that nukes in the hands of Iran need to be averted.
Well, and
we need to do something.
And you know, I was hearing yesterday, and I was doing a little bit of research, but Israel's saying something like within the next 12 weeks, there could be a potential strike coming because the window is closing that fast. Having said that, do you think that if all of a sudden this administration does an about-face, jumps on board with Israel, and gets involved in a strike in Iran, do you think that will actually help the president? Because one of the things that he's lacked, I think everyone agrees with, is that he's almost lacked a spine when it comes to bully nations like Iran, especially with Russia. You know, some of these nations that he just kind of bows down to, and he ignores allies like Israel. So do you think that if all of a sudden he did an about-face and said, hey, you know what, based on this new intelligence, the time is now, we got to go in, we got to partner up with Israel and maybe, you know, a few other nations, I'm sure Turkey might jump in it with us just because it would benefit them. But do you think that would actually help his chances?
You know, I'm not sure. I would think so, but, you know, it all depends on whether the extreme left would come out and support him after something like that. You know, all of his base may wind up staying home.
Well,
so
yeah.
maybe I'm not sure if it would help him or not. I would think it would, because I would think, you know, most of the center in America would wind up being, you know, admiring him for taking a strong stand like that. Something like, you know, Harry Truman did to end World War II. But whether it helps him politically or not, listen, the fate of the world is at hand. The fate of the United States and our ally Israel is at hand. And we need to do what's right. We have to stop worrying about political correctness. If Harry Truman worried about political correctness, World War II could have still been going on. God knows how long it would have lasted. I believe with all the lives that were lost, with those bombs that went off in Japan, it averted all the lives that it would have lost had he not ended World War II at that time. I really think that's the situation that we're in today.
Well, I think certainly with that, the Japanese government was more worried about their own hide, and they figured they were next to be hit. I don't know if they were as worried about their people at the time, but, you know, the same thing could be with Iran. We just don't know. But I think that the left would get right behind him, because it doesn't matter what he does. For whatever reason, they come out and support him, and they never denounce him when he does anything that goes against their grain. They just somehow spin it into that he is this magical man that figures out how to do the right thing at the right time and evolves.
You know, I think that the scenario changes if the U.S. does not get behind them and Israel strikes on their own. I think that changes the scenario. Yeah, I think that changes the scenario a lot for the president, and I think that actually hurts him. And I'm not sure. I mean, Israel is and Netanyahu is not a silly or slow man. He understands American politics just fine. And I think he understands where the Obama administration stands in relation to Israel, and that if they strike without waiting for a U.S. approval, that they could have an impact through their actions on the American election. The thing that I think is on his mind is, okay, what if he still gets reelected, and now we need replacement aircraft or replacement weaponry or whatnot, and this administration is not supporting. Now he's not going to get it. So it seems like Israel's really in a catch-22 with this whole thing.
Well, I question whether Israel has the capability of getting the job done with regards to Iran. But I would say that if America does not help Israel, then Israel has to take care of the job itself and let the chips fall where they may, because Israel knows nuclear weapons in the hands of Iran may mean the destruction of the Jewish state. But I would also say that America needs to take a stand and help Israel in this matter, or do it all on its own, because I believe that Israel needs America, but at the same point, I think America needs Israel. America needs that friend in the Middle East. America needs that stable friend that's willing to side with America no matter what. They're the fortress for us, and they're the shield for us. They're the front lines regarding terrorism, worldwide terrorism, because they're right there in the Middle East, where a lot of the terrorism is fomented and hatched. Where plans are hatched, and we need them there.
Well, I think even more so is that we've made a commitment to Israel. They've been nothing but a trusting ally. We know the people of Israel, wonderful people, and I think that alone is enough reason that with the proper evidence, we need to assist Israel. And I would love to turn this whole interview into a conversation about the Middle East, and maybe we'll have you back at a later time when we cover the topic as a whole, because really would appreciate your input. But let's get back to you're running for Congress, and I think people should probably know that, because we've gone way off track, because this it's such a hot topic. Why don't you tell us what do you think the brightest moment in our country was in history? Any type, doesn't matter what threshold.
Well, I look at things like the Industrial Revolution, which really we turned a corner, and it changed the course of the world when we used things like fossil fuels. I know it's a dirty word to a lot of sectors of our society, or at least the extreme left, but when we use fossil fuels to create things like to run our machinery, where we have oil, that allowed us to fight in different world wars, that allowed us to move the automobile from point A to point B, which gave us business and prosperity and freedom inside the United States. A lot of people don't make a correlation between freedom and the free markets. But the truth is that when our country was founded, we were founded with individualism and rights that were given to us by God, that we were allowed to prosper as individuals, where we didn't have to worry about the government getting so much a part of our lives. And I think that that oil and the free markets and the Industrial Revolution, it allowed our country to remain free. And unfortunately, around the world, we've got socialism growing in Europe and Latin America, and Islamism growing in Middle East and South Asia, and all of that is pointed towards the United States. And we need to stand for the freedom that our founding fathers created, and the individualism that our founding fathers created, and not have so much government bogging us down in our lives, getting involved in our health care, or getting involved in this overregulation that takes place, and overtaxation that sends so many jobs overseas. So really, the thing that I love the most about this country is the free market system and how we got this free market system.
I agree with you. Do you see that those socialism and these other things, multiculturalism and so forth, is growing here in the United States as well? I mean, you mentioned the European countries also. Do you see us going the way of Rome? Is it too late? I see very few principled leaders that understand our founding ideals, that understand true liberty, that understand the fact that we're a republic, we are not a democracy. And so I don't know that I see America turning around anytime soon. Do you think it's possible we turn around? If so, how do we do that?
The way we turn around is very simple. Through our energy. We are sitting on top of the largest supply of natural gas in the world. We have 1.5 trillion barrels of recoverable oil within our shores. We only have to go after it. And I know Debbie Wasserman Schultz gets on television. She talks about how it's going to take years before we're able to, refine all this oil and such. Well, the truth is, if we don't start today, then we're going to lose our country tomorrow. But if we do start today, it will mean energy independence for the United States. It will mean security for the United States. It will mean millions of new jobs in the United States. It will mean exports and the creation of new products. That's the way we get out of the mess that we're in today, through our energy. And yeah, there are other things we can do, like cut the corporate tax rate. Cisco and Apple and Pfizer recently went to the Obama administration, and they said to the Obama administration, if you repatriate those corporate profits that are sitting overseas, if you significantly cut the corporate tax rate, then we're going to repatriate at least $1 trillion of those profits back to the United States. That's $1 trillion of growth and jobs and investments to the U.S. And what was the Obama administration's response to this? We're going to create more taxes on business and the so-called wealthy, and we're going to kick more businesses out of our country because we want to show our country that we don't want business to happen here in the United States. But you know what? We need to cut those corporate tax rates so that we bring business back to the U.S. We need to cut the regulations that are strangling our small businesses and industry, and we need, first and foremost, to build up our energy sector, because it's the one thing that we have in the United States that so many countries want, but we have it and we need to grow it.
Well, I think that goes against especially the left's agenda, especially Debbie Wasserman Schultz and even the president, is that if all of a sudden we have this financial freedom, we have this prosperity, people are back to work, they don't need government. And sadly, this administration is just marvelous at telling people how much they need government. I mean, it goes back to his whole small business speech a couple weeks ago. You didn't build that when he talks about roads and bridges. No, we did build that. We paid for that.
Food stamp commercials.
The food stamp commercials. So I think it's pretty telling that that's exactly why they don't want it, is because they know it would be a pretty fast turnaround. People would be back to work quickly, and then they'd turn around and say, hey, you know what, maybe we don't need government. They'd get that self-starter pride, and our economy, I think our economy would turn around greatly in a matter of a short time, maybe 4 or 5 years before it's in a full, complete boom. And people are like, oh, yeah, you know what? Maybe the left did lead us by the nose a little bit. Maybe we didn't need government as much.
I think that you answered the question very well as far as an economic turnaround. I'm curious, how do we turn around ideologically? Because we have a huge percentage of our population that does not understand our founding principles, does not understand how we were set up to be a republic, and how we've strayed so far from that. And one of my favorite examples is the 17th Amendment, how we really basically just trashed state rights and took state representation away from the federal level when that passed. How do we turn this country around ideologically so that we don't go down this road again?
Well, you have to look at a place like France. It's really the thing that scares me the most. Growing up inside the United States, being born inside the United States, and spending my entire life inside the U.S., and knowing that there are democracies throughout the world in places like Spain and England and France and Germany and such, and to think that the people of France, and I know that France hasn't been the greatest ally of the United States, but at least when you grow up in the U.S., you know that France is a democracy and the people have a vote. And to think that the people of France voted in a socialist president and then voted in a socialist legislature, it's the scariest thought that that's going to happen here in the U.S. But the truth is that things that go on overseas, and when I mention, all of this socialism and Islamism that's growing, throughout the world and targeting the United States, we are affected by that. The Obama administration is a result, I believe, of a lot of that. And unfortunately, our youth inside the United States are influenced by the rest of the world, and they're influenced when they see those things happening. And if they think that somehow socialism is cool, or it's cool to support the Obama-type Democrats inside the United States, then before we know it, before we turn our heads, we're going to wind up like France, or in the worst-case scenario, Greece, where there's riots.
So how do we fix it?
Well, you fix it with the youth. You teach them that freedom is something to be cherished. That success is something to be praised. and not shunned. This country, we shun success. We have the Environmental Protection Agency that all it is to say no to business inside the United States, to drive more business overseas. That's the thing that we have to hammer into the youth of our nation, into the next generation, that success is something to be praised. That if somebody becomes wealthy inside the United States, God bless them, because you know what? They're building up the United States, and they're creating jobs for the United States, and they're helping the United States as a whole. And if they make money, God bless them, because they're helping others make money as well.
Yeah, and I feel that one of the things that the people don't realize, the EPA from the get-go has pretty much destroyed a lot of industry in this country by, instead of working with the industry to find better ways to do things that are a little bit safer, they just completely shut them down and make it almost impossible for them to operate. Then those jobs go overseas. I look at coal right now and then steel as my examples of that. I think that one of the things that we need to show them is you look at the socialist countries over there and how much they're suffering economically, that they're suffering worse than we are in some cases, and because they pay out more than they take in regularly, they have all these entitlement programs. I mean, look at Greece. That's the best example you could possibly give for why economically socialism doesn't work, and you can get into all the aspects of socialism, like why Che Guevara is being sold on a Gap T-shirt, which drives me absolutely insane. They're being idolized, and they're not being shown the facts behind socialism. And on the other hand, we are not pushing the facts of our founding freedoms, our founding fathers, why this country is great, why it can be even better, and where we've lost ways. And people aren't being taught to learn from our mistakes. They're just being taught to ignore them, and hopefully we won't make them again.
Well, listen, you guys and me, we're talking right now, and 10 years from now, after this show, we may find that, because today we know that 50% of the country is working for the other 50% of the country. We know that there are people sitting at home that are able-bodied workers that are collecting welfare checks, not only doing harm to the entire nation, they're doing harm to the poor, that need that money. And as a compassionate nation, we need to help them. We are driving businesses overseas with overregulation and overtaxation. Our government doesn't care about that. The EPA, certainly their goal, I believe, is for all of us to drive around like the Flintstones with our feet because they don't like fossil fuels.
Yeah.
But the truth is that these are the things that drive freedom: less taxes, less regulations, more independence, more fossil fuels, not less. These are the things that created the Industrial Revolution, that allowed us to be free and to allow all these other countries to believe that the United States was a beacon of light for the world. But unfortunately now we're turning into the rest of the world. We're adopting their customs, we're adopting their beliefs, and we're telling the younger generation that it's somehow cool to be socialist. It's not cool. But 10 years from now, we're going to know, you and I, we're going to know if we were able to stand tall and stand firm and stand for freedom for the United States, or we were going to go the way of France and Greece and become one of the other nations in Europe or Latin America. I talked to all these individuals, all these immigrants to the United States that came here from overseas, from oppressive places like Venezuela and even like places like Belarus and such, where they arrest people for protesting against the government. They know oppression, and they know the difference between oppression and freedom. Here, growing up inside the United States, a lot of times we take it for granted that we grew up in a place that was so free. But we always have to remember that this freedom came with a cost. A lot of people died. A lot of people shed their blood to allow us to keep our freedom, and we've only been around for 236 years, less than 3 lifetimes. We're a very young country, and really we need to keep this country free. And 10 years from now, we'll know if we did that or if we went the way of Europe. I don't want to go that way. I'm willing to fight, and that's why I'm running for Congress.
Joe, you mentioned the youth several times, and I want to come back again to this ideals and how we get people to wake up and know our principles, so that, because I believe those founding principles, as you've indicated, led to the Industrial Revolution and so forth. The Northwest Ordinance talks about religion, morality, and knowledge being necessary for good government, as well as the happiness of mankind. Schools and the means of education shall forever be encouraged. And they're talking, again, religion and morality along with that knowledge. As a member of Congress, would you support a bill or some form of legislation that reiterates that portion of the Northwest Ordinance, which is one of our organic documents, as I'm sure you're well aware, to bring that to the forefront of the American conscience again, and perhaps start teaching our youth these principles, so that we can have another industrial revolution, maybe as you've indicated in the sector of energy or whatnot, so we can achieve energy independence. Would you support legislation, something like that, as a member of Congress?
Well, certainly, when we look at the freedoms of our country, we have to look at the fact that that our Constitution openly states that these rights are given to us by God. We believe that as Americans, and we have to stand to believe that. If we lose that moral position, if we go the way of immorality, then really what we're saying, is that government is the best solution, and that the individual shouldn't be able to devote their life to fighting for their own cause and for their own beliefs. It's the great thing about our country that we have things like freedom of religion. In countries that are socialist and communist in nature, they denounce religion, but they are failures. Freedom and democracy and the republic that we created inside the United States, it was founded with moral positions, moral clarity, and certainly I would support anything that promotes morality in our country, because it's the thing that makes us free. Freedom doesn't just come with free markets; it also comes with morality. Because without the morality, we can do anything we want. We have no fear of God, and we can do anything we want to our fellow man without any repercussions. And that's really what to me, what socialism is all about. Government controlling all of our lives, not letting us live the way that we believe ourselves. We are a free nation, and because of that, we are a moral nation, and a nation that runs on ethics, and we need to keep that in order to keep our freedom.
And you brought up, and I'm glad you did, you brought up the Constitution. How do you view the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution? Do you view them together? Do you view them that they go part and parcel? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think a lot of great men, they were brilliant, and they, I wouldn't call them fortune tellers, but really they created documents that we can use for the rest of our lives, and America can run on those documents and needs to run on those documents forever. So they at least had some type of future thought that allowed for freedom to survive because of these documents. I view them as part and parcel of each other, and they are things that we shouldn't veer from. When our founding fathers developed this nation on limited government, but with the fact that the government has to supply this country with a national security and with a national economy, I believe that's the case. But I don't want to see government run amok. I don't want to see the government get too powerful, because once that happens, then it's no longer we the people. Then it's we the officials. We all have to understand that the government officials are the servants to the people, not the other way around. And it's the thing that sets us apart from the rest of the world.
Well, and you brought up a great point when you talk about defense. If you're elected to Congress, do you think that there is a way that we can cut our defense funding without necessarily shoestring our defense? I know that's very tough for the right sometimes to admit that needs to happen, but we have the ability now to strike extremely far. We have capabilities now that are becoming more and more dependable, where we don't necessarily need to have the same amount of people resources, but we need to have the equipment. Would you try to find a way to cut defense in our budget, but not necessarily cut our safety?
No, I wouldn't. Well, I understand. I understand the very least that there are bases around the world that may be unnecessary. But one of the things that I found detestable about this Obama administration is that whenever it came to cutting any agency and making any type of cuts in the United States, they all fell on defense. Defense is the first priority of cuts for this administration. None of the other government programs can be affected, but defense needs to be cut. No, when you cut defense, you're cutting the security of the nation, and really to send a message to this administration, to the Democratic Party. No, absolutely, I wouldn't talk about cutting defense. Not at a time when the world is getting more dangerous but no, unfortunately this government's first priority, and on top of that, in the cuts that they don't make to defense with the Obama administration, they push for things like a green policy for our military's fuel, which costs I think like 20 or 100 times the amount of money that normal fuel costs. That's untested and all of that. So the amount of money that's actually left in the budget, they're trying to spend for greening up our military. No, I wouldn't. I don't want to discuss cutting any defense.
Okay, and the reason we bring this up, and it wouldn't necessarily be defense only. I mean, obviously, entitlements are a huge issue that needs to be addressed as well. But so you wouldn't favor any cuts, even if it's part of an entire package of cuts to get government spending under control that addresses entitlements. Also, we have the military spending $56 a gallon of fossil fuel or whatever to be a green navy or a green military. That seems like it's a ridiculous amount of money. And if an agency has money to pay $56 a gallon for a biofuel, what else is being wasted? So I don't necessarily. Go ahead.
First of all, I don't support the military using biofuels when it costs so much money. I think it's totally unnecessary. But with regards to entitlements, I look to courageous people like Paul Ryan, who puts forward this courageous budget, and unfortunately, the Democrats' response to this is raising taxes on the so-called wealthy, which, as we discussed before, all it does is ship more jobs overseas and destroys more middle class inside the United States. But unfortunately, also, you have somebody like Debbie Wasserman Schultz. After Paul Ryan comes out with his budget, which would cut spending in our nation, which is something that we need to do, especially when given the fact that our credit rating went down because we refused to cut spending. Debbie Wasserman Schultz the next day starts screaming about how Paul Ryan is trying, and the Republicans are trying to destroy Medicare and Social Security. And what was the after effect? Well, all these seniors got scared and hated Republicans' guts. But the second thing, which was even more dangerous, was that all the Republicans that wanted to support Paul Ryan, all of a sudden they started running away from Paul Ryan and hiding under their desks because they didn't want to be. Because they wanted their votes. Well, I think people like Paul Ryan, you have to praise them because they're willing to do what's right at the cost of being politically correct. But the trustees, the board of trustees of Medicare and Social Security, which makes guesstimates every year about when those programs are going to be bankrupt, they even said, and they're an independent body, they said that if we don't respond and respond to the entitlement programs today, then those programs are going to be gone before we know it. And so, no doubt, we have to look at the entitlement programs. If it deals with certain cuts in defense, such as bases that are unnecessary overseas, or getting rid of biofuels to change to normal fuels, which cost a normal amount of money, then certainly I would take that into consideration.
Okay.
But any type of like major cut in defense, which is what I believe the Obama administration's goal is totally off limits for me.
No, we're not talking about a major defense cut. We're just talking about the cuts in order to make the military realize they have to operate within a budget and not spend money on ridiculous things like that biofuel. You brought up another interesting point where you indicated that Republicans fled from Paul Ryan because it was the politically expedient thing to do. If there was an issue in Congress that you were passionate about, you knew to be morally right, you knew to be the right thing to do for our country. However, it would not be in your political best interest to do so and may affect your reelection chances next time around. Would you stay the course and support what you knew to be right, or would you have obviously that political consideration and perhaps go that route?
I want everybody to understand that I'm running for United States Congress not to get any type of power or name recognition or make any money for myself. I'm doing this like I did after 9/11 to protect my country that I love and I grew up in. And if there is something that I feel so strongly about that will help this country and morally I couldn't go against it, then absolutely I would be willing to vote for that and be passionate about it in doing so, because it's doing what's right. I'm not, God willing, I'm in Congress come November. I get elected, but I'm not going to try so hard to stay in Congress that I'm willing to vote for something against my conscience. I won't do it. For most issues, certainly the small issues, you look to the people in the district and you find out what their wants and concerns are. And when it comes to those issues that you find where you can't break away from morally, you have to support those issues and you have to be passionate about those issues, because that's what makes you a human. That's what makes you a man and a woman. You stand with what you believe in and you don't look back.
Hey, and I appreciate it. We only have a couple minutes left here, Joe. Why don't you tell everyone where they can find you? Not right now. I mean, like on the website.
I'm at 123 Main Street. Come on down.
You go to our website, www.kaufman4congress.com. That's KAUFMAN for Congress.com, and you can volunteer your time and help us raise funds as well. We need those to do advertising and such to win this thing. But go to our website and get involved and speak your mind and vote August 14th. Please vote, and I ask for your vote.
And everyone out there can go to the website and check it out. Will you come back after the primary and talk to us, Joe?
I would love to.
And we, maybe even come back if we do a show in the Middle East. We may have you come on and go into that whole thing, because I want to explore that more with you. I wish we had more time today.
And Joe, we kind of got really in depth into the Middle East thing. Is there anything else you'd like to add? Any other message you'd like to get out to the folks?
Well, just to tell them that I'm doing this for the right reasons, and for them to always remember that no matter what, I put America first in everything that I do.
That's a great message, Joe. Joe Kaufman, running for Congress, 23rd District of Florida. Joe, thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Joe.
Thank you. Be well. Take care, guys.
You too, sir.
Bye.
So that was the interview with Joe Kaufman. We both thought he actually did a really good job. Definitely enjoyed the talk. It was a lot of fun. Found out a lot. Like I said, I really hope at some point he gets to come back and discuss the Middle East with us, and that whole just conundrum that's over there and what we can find out. While somebody was on the phone, while he was on the interview, somebody called in. They just wanted to give us a little bit of breaking news themselves. And
why the hell are you going to put me on the spot like that? Michael Moore's a douchebag.
So just in case anyone didn't know, that's just my first opinion. But, that's the beauty of live radio.
So his opinion is that Michael Moore is a douchebag.
Yes.
I don't think that's breaking news. I think a lot of people actually feel that way.
Fine. So
I'm ready for a break. I'm tired. I'm bushed.
No, we are going to take a break. We come back. If you want to give us a call, it's 347-205-9399. We're going to come back and discuss the whole Super PAC fiasco. So stick around. We'll be right back.
Hey, this is Sackhead Clint. We're fortunate enough to have our friend Vanessa do our news briefs. If you like her news briefs, she is a voiceover talent. Check out Platinum Vocal Cords. She has over 15 years radio and voiceover experience. Graduated Northwestern State University with a liberal arts degree. Don't let that scare you, folks. She is a true sackhead. Please check her out. Again, that's PlatinumVocalCords.com. Thank you.
Hey guys, it's Sean from Sackheads Radio. I want to talk to you a minute about our friends over at HomefrontHugs.com. They're an amazing organization of volunteers who take their time, effort, and money to take care of our troops overseas as they serve our great nation. HomefrontHugs.com. You can donate, write letters to troops, adopt a troop, you name it, you can do it. Help those wonderful folks who protect our freedoms. Go to HomefrontHugs.com. Tell them Sackheads Radio sent you.
Hey guys, it's Sean from Sackheads Radio. I know I've said it before. Check out our friends at conservativeoutcry.net, but I really mean it. If you want interesting and exciting political commentary and analysis, that is the place to get it. Different, always spot on, always truthful, never pulling a punch. conservativeoutcry.net. Tell Rooster to get Bulldog back on and that Sackheads Radio sent you. And also, coming soon, the Sackheads Radio Forum on conservativeoutcry.net.
Hey, this is Sackhead Clint. I want to take this opportunity to thank all the wingnut leaders throughout the world to give our men and women of the armed forces a job, as well as all the anarchists, terrorists, and Occupy folks that give our men and women in uniform on the home front, firefighters, law enforcement personnel, and first responders, job security here in the States as well. So thank all you wingnuts out there. This is Sackhead Clint saying have a good day.
Due to the graphic nature of this program, listener discretion is advised.
3, 2.
I love how you're still doing the countdown. We discussed previously that it's completely unnecessary.
Hey, now welcome back, our true professionals, Clint and Sean.
And welcome back to Sackheads Radio, going into the last half an hour of the show.
So I want to play an ad.
Huh?
I want to play an ad.
Do you really? This is fun for me because you don't show a lot of interest in ads. So what's it going to be?
Yeah, you're right. I don't have anything.
What do you got?
The Obama Super PAC ad,
right,
which is played, which essentially blames Mitt Romney for the death of a steelworker's
I've heard of this.
wife. So I'm going to play it right now.
Now, over the next 3 months, 89 days to be precise.
But who's counting?
What's that?
But who's counting?
Yeah, I don't know. Nobody.
I don't think Mitt Romney understands what he's done to people's lives by closing the plant. I don't think he realizes that people's lives completely changed. When Mitt Romney and Bain closed the plant, I lost my health care. And my family lost their health care. And a short time after that, my wife became ill. I don't know how long she was sick. And I think maybe she didn't say anything because she knew that we couldn't afford the insurance. And then one day she became ill, and I took her up to the Jackson County Hospital and admitted her for pneumonia, and that's when they found the cancer. And by then it was stage 4. There was nothing they could do for her. And she passed away in 22 days. I do not think Mitt Romney realizes what he's done to anyone. And furthermore, I do not think Mitt Romney...
I gotta stop this because this ad is just a bunch of crap.
Yeah.
So the super PAC that put this out is a super PAC called Priorities USA.
Action.org.
And wow, you're practically like a commercial.
Not willingly.
It was This Priorities USA action was formed by ex-White House staff members, a guy named Sean Sweeney and Bill Burton.
What?
I know. Sweeney was an advisor to Rahm Emanuel, who was Obama's first chief of staff.
Who is now the current mayor of Chicago.
Right.
Okay.
And Bill Burton, obviously another White House staffer. So they formed this super PAC for Priorities USA.
Action.org.
Stop. Are you a commercial for them?
Just keep going. I just want to make sure everyone knows who they are.
Now, the super PACs have been kind of a hot button issue, and I don't know if you remember the times when some conservative super PACs were running ads against Obama. The Times went absolutely sideways about it, and of course they're completely silent on this. there is the president then, Jay Carney was asked about these super PAC ads, or about this ad in particular, because the campaign isn't supposed to talk to the super PACs, right?
Right, at all.
However, right, but I'm sure the Obama, they weren't aware of this ad at all. But you would think that an ad that despicable, I mean, accusing anybody, I mean, it doesn't matter if the right was doing it to Obama, accusing somebody of killing a spouse or anybody at all is despicable, not to mention the fact that this ad compresses the time frame to such a degree that and is completely misleading in its facts, and you're dancing completely up and down in your chair right now like you want to have to say
because
something.
I have a couple facts, and
you do?
Yeah, I have a couple facts.
Wow.
First of all, the gentleman who's on the ad, his name is Joe Soptic.
Yeah.
I believe I pronounced that right.
Septic?
Yeah. He
no, is that, I didn't hear what you said. Is Joe Septic? Oh, okay.
He was laid off from his steel company in 2001, and by laid off, they offered him a buyout.
Okay.
At the time, the guy running Bain Capital, who allegedly they say was Mitt Romney, his name was Jonathan Levine. His wife had his own insurance separately.
Yes.
Unfortunately, in 2006, his wife, Renee Soptic, passed away after coming into the hospital. Wait, that was 5 years. He said shortly afterwards. That was 5 years between the time that he was...
well, shortly is such a relative term.
I guess. And I'm not downplaying the fact that this poor woman passed away of cancer. That's not what...
No, that's a horrible thing.
But she was brought to the hospital with pneumonia-like symptoms. It was found out she had stage 4 cancer, and she passed away, like he said, 22 days later. So, yeah, it's one of those things where the facts are just all over the place, and they're specifically put in to mislead people. And I think it's amazing.
It's a misleading ad. Now, Jay Carney was asked about it. We have a couple callers holding, so bear with us. I want to play a couple things, and then we'll take calls, and we'll talk about this. Jay Carney was asked a couple questions on this. We want to play that response.
Conservative Super PAC American Crossroads has a new video, or new ad. It calls on President Obama to denounce the ad by priorities, the main pro-President Obama Super PAC that links Mitt Romney to the death of the steelworker's wife. Do you have a response to the ad?
I'm not aware of the new Super PAC ad that you reference. I find it rich with irony. But I'm wondering if there's so many different groups out there, if that particular Republican Super PAC is urging itself or the Republican candidate or some other Republican leader to denounce the other third-party Republican Super PAC ad that questions whether or not the president is an American citizen. I mean, there's a point at which
that's a smaller Super PAC. I'm talking about.
I didn't realize that these were.
This is the Super PAC that President, Super PAC that President Obama himself
let's talk about size.
Pulled his bundle.
In how many states has the ad that?
Okay, so I gotta stop this. Okay, so he's just dancing around. Yeah, I don't know. Haven't seen the ad. Bull. I don't think he's being completely honest with that. So the left has this super PAC, which they hate. I find it weird because Obama doesn't like super PACs, right?
Over the next 3 months, 89 days to be precise.
Oh, what's he gonna say?
The other side will be spending more money than we've ever seen. You've got these guys writing $10 million checks. You've got these super PACs that are just going crazy.
All of them on both sides.
Super PACs going crazy, $10 million. This ad, $20 million run over, I think it was 5 swing states. And yet Obama is saying these super PAC ads are horrible.
Yeah, well, like everything else, it's what's good for the goose isn't always good for the gander, and it just kills me how he can denounce these super PACs, yet he has a super PAC that's working for him. Even though
well, no, it's not working for him because that'd be illegal.
I'm sorry. It's working to expose the Romney administration and Mitt Romney, who accuses essentially Mitt Romney of allowing this woman to pass away at the end, and
they hold him responsible for it. Because of him that did it, yet. Yeah, I'm disgusted by it. I really hope this isn't a sign. I think it is. Can you imagine how bad these ads are going to be if the president sinks even lower in the polls? I mean, can you imagine how ugly this contest is going to be, it's absolutely disgusting to me. We have several callers on hold. Let's take.
You want to take them?
Yeah.
All right. Let's see. Hey, you're on the air, Sackheads Radio. You have a question?
Yes, your Republican candidate Joe Kaufman there?
No, he's actually not in studio right now.
Oh, he's not. Is he due to come, or did he come and then leave?
We actually had the interview earlier in the show. Sorry about that.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Yep. Bye. Go to another call anyhow. Why not, right?
Absolutely.
Sackheads Radio, you're on the air.
I was just sitting here listening. Thank you.
Oh, okay. Well, thanks for listening.
Thanks for listening.
I hope you enjoy the show. We'll go one more. Why not? Sackheads Radio, you're on the air. Do you have a question? Do you want to talk about super PACs?
I actually have an interesting topic to bring up.
Okay. If it's along the lines with what we're talking about, sure.
Yeah. It's quad.
What? Folks, that is why you don't allow your kids up this late at night.
Not only that, don't do drugs. Because if you do drugs, you sound like a knucklehead.
You know, it's funny. I love playing caller roulette occasionally, and that's what I'm going to call that now. We don't screen. We just...
You know what's awesome is that person thought that number was blocked, but it's not.
Yeah,
you want to call him back?
You know what? Hopefully we can call him back and get the house and wake up his parents. So anyhow, back you know, it's one of those things. It's amazing, and this administration is the best at, if the other side does it, it's absolutely deplorable. It doesn't matter what it is oftentimes, and in this case it's super PACs. But if they're doing it against the other side, or even though they can't do it for Obama, they're doing it for Obama, then it's fine. And he doesn't denounce them. It's kind of like, it's funny, it's kind of like Occupy Wall Street, where nobody really denounced them, but yet the left embraced all of them.
It's okay when they do it. Look, I'm disgusted.
But the Tea Party is not a grassroots movement, and that was a direct quote from Pelosi.
We talk about principles, and we talk about values in our political system, and yes, Jefferson and Madison beat each other up, or Jefferson and Adams beat each other up back when they were running for office, but we're not talking about beating each other up politically. We're talking about accusing another candidate or trying to hold another candidate directly responsible for the death of a woman who had cancer and misrepresenting the facts in order to try and make that case. That is such a new low, in my opinion, here in our political scene. And I think it's inappropriate if the right does it. I think it's inappropriate if the left does it. I think that as the President of the United States, and if for nothing else, I mean, if you're not man enough and human enough to denounce an ad like that, then at least your office as the President of the United States and what you represent, you should come out and denounce that ad and that type of politicking. I remember when in 2008 when he was running, and he was running against Hillary Clinton in the primary, and then in John McCain, he was talked about how important these types of ads were, and now he's completely silent on a super PAC ad for him, which is more disgusting than anything that had been run previously, I think. So for him as President of the United States, not even as a candidate, but as President of the United States, not to come out and say, hey, this is inappropriate, we need to talk about the issues. And you know what? These are the issues. This is where we are. This is what I believe.
Well, and here's my issue, and we talk about this all the time. We want to elect people of principles and values. We want to know who they are as they're getting elected. I mean, we know who the president is. We've had 4 years to figure him out, and even longer. Everyone knows who he is. They're going after things with the Romney administration that aren't true. Completely. They're using the death of a woman who passed of cancer to try to show you that he is an uncaring person because he wants to repeal the Obamacare. I don't know how they made that relation. I would love to.
Well, they made that relation because he was responsible for supposedly the steelworker losing his job and therefore losing the health care. And so they're saying that action, because he doesn't care about the middle class and the workers. That action caused him to lose health care, which in turn caused his wife to die. And then you can parlay that into the health care argument as well.
Yeah,
but
if they didn't have insurance for 5 years, they would have been hitting with a fine for 5 years in a row. I mean,
true. I just saw something in these remarks. That clip we played of Obama talking in Pueblo, Colorado on the 9th.
Yeah.
I want to read it because I actually have the text up that I got from whitehouse.gov, the press office, and remarks president campaign event, Pueblo, Colorado. And I'm going to read this again. Now, I've got to tell you, we've got less than 3 months left in this election. Less than 3 months. Time is flying. And over the next 3 months, you will see more negative ads. More money being spent than you've ever seen in your life. Now, I want to end it right there and not read the last sentence. I'll read the last sentence in a moment. But over the next, you'll see more negative ads, more money spent than you've ever seen in your life.
Yep.
He doesn't say from the right.
No. He just
so
isn't going to see it.
So is he foretelling that this is what's going to happen? Now, his last line is, I mean, these super PACs, these guys are writing $10 million checks and giving them to Mr. Romney's supporters. So he's inferring that it's going to come from the right. I mean, he's basically making two statements. Let's separate those out. Hey, you're going to see more negative ads, more money spent than you've ever seen in your life. Okay, that's one statement. Perhaps could be foretelling what he's going to be doing. It's not a lie. Second statement, I mean, these super PACs, they're writing $10 million checks and giving them to Mr. Romney supporters. He's not saying they're giving them to Mr. Romney supporters and Mr. Romney is going to put out more negative ads.
Right.
He doesn't make that leap. What he's saying is two factual statements. The inference is there.
Well, yeah.
What do you think? Is he foreshadowing that he's going to be releasing more negative ads?
Of course he is. And it's.
Do you think that's by design? That he's foreshadowing that?
Absolutely.
I don't think he's that smart.
Really? Oh, no.
No, I'm just kidding. That's why.
He's going to eventually come out and say, he'll eventually be forced, and I think this will be one of those super PAC ads that is going to force him to say, hey, I don't agree with every single super PAC ad, and even if they support me, because he's going to get called to the carpet on this, because this is just way too far low, and it's associated with him whether he likes it or not, and I think that's going to hurt him a little bit. I just cannot believe that there's any group out there that would do that, and again, it's getting away from what we want. We want to know the politics of the person, not mudslinging, and they can't help themselves. The left is just amazing.
You know what?
It's slinging mud. Sorry.
I
didn't want to say they were just amazing. That's not what I meant.
A lot of their arguments fall apart, especially on the progressive left. Their arguments fall apart when you start injecting original intent and original American values and original constitutional principles into the argument. They can't argue it. They argue emotion, they argue feeling, but they can't argue on the laws. They can't argue on the facts or the hardcore principles of where we're born. Their arguments just fall apart. And so now in this case, they cannot make a case on the economy.
No, not at all.
They can't. Obama's had 4 years. You cannot make a case on the economy. You can't make a case on spending. Obama is the biggest spender in history.
So he can't help himself.
You can't make a case for jobs. He doesn't have a case to present to the American people unless that case is, look, we want to move more towards a larger government, socialist type government system, and we are achieving that through the implementation of health care by failing to look at welfare and by failing to look at other entitlement programs. That would be something that he could do as an achievement and that he could run on. Hey, we have QE3 that's due to hit here pretty soon. He can run on those, but he can't run on what a lot of American people are talking about.
Right.
And I remember a statement he made, we don't have the audio tonight, where he says that if this economy isn't turned around at the end of his first term, he's going to be a one-term president.
Right.
He said something to that effect.
Well, now he's asking for 4 more years and blaming the Republicans for blocking all of his fiscal bills. And all that stuff.
He had 2 years where he had control of the House, the Senate. The Republicans could not even filibuster.
Well, yeah, he could have healthcare.
He could have slammed anything he wanted through. And we're still in this mess. So that argument doesn't hold water.
And if you listen to our earlier too, one of the things Joe Kaufman brought up that I thought was right on the nose is if we start researching our energy here, the oil that's here, the natural gas that's here, it would cause a financial boom that could actually start to turn things around. This president will not do that.
No, he won't. He's done everything to inhibit that, and we've talked about that before. We have another caller.
Yeah, and we'll take it. Constantine for Albaline. You are on the air with Sackheads Radio. Do you have a question?
Well, actually, I didn't really have a question, but I was just listening. But since you picked me up, I didn't have my hand raised. But since you picked me up, what do you think about HR? But since you asked, well, anyway, since you asked, what do you think about HR 347? Are you familiar with it?
No, give me the title of it versus the HR number.
HR 347. It was a quick bill that basically takes away your right to protest when the president's in a building or something like that.
That's the Federal Restricted Buildings and Grounds Act.
Yeah, we talked about that a while ago, and it's amazing to me that now that he's in the office, you can't all of a sudden go in and protest against him if it's peaceful, not peaceful, doesn't matter. And I forget what the limitations are, but they essentially have the right to say, yeah, it doesn't matter what your opinion is, and even though you have the right to protest, you don't have the right to protest now because, well, the president's here and he really doesn't want to see you. And it looks bad if people have cameras and they see the president and then they see people with signs behind them saying, we don't like you, we don't like your policies, whatever. It's just sad. And it was a piece of legislation that was thrown through. I think they used the Gabby Giffords incident as the reasoning behind it. But let's face it, it's because down protests in the background of him when he's walking around, and that's what it comes down to. At least that's my thought, Clint.
What scares me about this is sometimes these laws will say, hey, if you have the intent to disrupt the orderly conduct of business, then you're in violation. Which those laws are fairly common, but this section actually has a parenthetical one that just says simply knowingly enters or remains in any restricted building or grounds without lawful authority to do so. That's it. You don't have to be disrupting the orderly conduct of business or official functions or anything like that. You simply have to enter or remain in any restricted building or grounds without lawful authority to do so. And I have issue with that, and I'm curious to see what's going to happen the first time somebody gets arrested for this section, and they're not disrupting; they're simply there to voice an opinion in a peaceful manner.
Yeah, but a federal offense with a 10-year, 10 years. I mean, that's a little much, I think. They have trespassing laws everywhere. What's the need for this? Doesn't make sense.
Well, like I said, for me, I think it had a lot to do with it keeps you from the background of certain politicians, so people aren't just sitting there holding signs, and it keeps that separation. Which, in my opinion, all that does is if I'm a protester and I want to get my point across to a politician, doing it in a peaceful manner, and I go to show my sign, and Secret Service shows up and goes, whoa, you can't show your sign, even though you kind of have the right to do it via the Constitution, but we changed that a little bit. But that silly Constitution just gets in our way. What that does is that puts that politician, in this case the president, up even higher.
I think
puts him on that weird pedestal that they love to have him on, that he's this untouchable rock star.
I think it's different. I think it's done for a different reason.
Go for it.
I think it's shades of socialism is what it sounds more like to me. Of course, I was a political science major, and I think there's at least 3 parts of the Constitution this violates. It just doesn't seem like it should stand.
It clearly violates the Constitution. It won't be challenged in court until somebody's arrested for it and challenges it, and I'm curious to see how the courts are going to rule on this section. The second thing is it reminds me more of almost like a fascist government in the sense that you have a leader that you're trying to put up on a pedestal, as Sean said. However, you are limiting the people's dissent. And you look at what was done. I go back to Woodrow Wilson's presidency a lot, and he was a master of propaganda. Goebbels and Hitler and the Nazi Party took Woodrow Wilson's propaganda machine and used it as a model for their propaganda machine. And you look at what the Obama administration has done, and it parallels in many ways what the Wilson administration has done. For example, having its own press office, kind of a thing where what White House has like a media office as opposed to just like instead of a media relations puts out their own press releases. Woodrow Wilson has the 10-minute men or the 5-minute one, however many minutes there were. I don't know. Where they would stand up and give speeches in certain public places about how great the government was and so forth. So you have this propaganda machine under Wilson, and now you have Obama here, and this legislation gets passed in order to restrict people's ability to dissent to the government in any area where this person is, where you have cameras and so forth. So you no longer have that open dissent, which is healthy in American politics and for our culture. Yeah, it's all right to dissent. You have this limitation on that dissent. It's scary, in my opinion, for those reasons that I just outlined.
And I find it funny that this was pushed through with this administration, but I read something the other day, and I don't have the exact article where it came from, but they said essentially the White House told law enforcement, or suggested, I don't think they told them directly because they can't, that they should, during Occupy protests, not be as stringent with the laws. And that kills me that on one hand they're saying, hey, you know what, you're not allowed to protest the government, but if they're protesting against private business, yeah, let them go crazy.
Right.
You know, and I don't know where I know I read it, and I know it was an article, so whatever news organization that was, there's your credit. But it shows such a, I know I'm good at this, huh?
Yeah, that's great.
It shows such a double standard. And that really is the calling card of liberals. And the more we get into this, the more double standard you see.
Politics.
And I just hope, politics in general, but more from the left. And there are certainly politicians on the right that do it, and I'm not saying there aren't. But more and more on the left, because they love to have that socialist nudge, just that little bit more, that little bit more. And the problem is, and we talk about the book Nudge all the time, how many times can you be nudged before it's such a catastrophic change, before that line is crossed?
They won't. That's why it's a nudge. You don't realize it. They frame your choices for you.
At what point do we get nudged over the line? You can get nudged a little bit at a time, and eventually you turn around and you're already there.
Well, that's the point.
Gone.
That's the point.
No,
that's the point of nudge. That's why Cass Sunstein wrote the book.
Listen, don't get saucy with me, Bernays.
Listen, so at what point are we over the line? That's the point.
You know what I mean?
No, I don't.
At what point does the country as a whole wake up and say, hey, this is too much? You know, they're going after guns now, which they have been trying to for years. They're going after freedom of protest. I mean, it's just crazy to me. I mean, let's face it, this White House controls a lot of the media. Maybe not directly, but the media allows them to control it. It's not a fair media anymore.
Well, the White House has its own media office. They put out their own press releases, their own press.
Channel. It's called MSNBC, but
yes.
You know, it's just bizarre to me that people allow this to continue and allow it to continue, and nobody stands up. And there's a lot of people who are okay with this, and that frightens me. It scares me to death. And you know, Constantine, I really appreciate your call. If you don't have another question, we're going to get ready to wrap up the show here.
Thank you very much, sir.
Constantine, you there?
Taking the call. Yeah, I'm here. Sorry about that.
Thanks, buddy. I appreciate your call.
Thank you very much.
All right. Very intelligent call. I like the question. I like the topic. I like when that happens. We get good calls and we can actually banter and go into something that's enjoyable. What are you looking at me like that? I like interacting with people. So
I have a question for you.
Yeah.
So when the A's played the Yankees, they swept them and helped out your Red Sox. No. So how come when the Red Sox play the Rangers,
it's Bobby Valentine,
they can't extend the same courtesy?
It's Bobby Valentine.
It's disgusting.
You know, I'm going to do right now what Obama does with the Bush administration. I'm just going to blame everything on Valentine. And 3 years from now when he's fired, and 2 months from now when he's fired, I'm still going to blame Bobby Valentine. Because I figure, according to this president, I can get a good 4.5 years out of that.
I'm disgusted right now.
I'm disgusted, too. I'm really upset with how they're playing. It's completely inconsistently. On paper, they should be doing way better than they're doing. They have, like, one great game, and then they have, like, 3 lousy games and a couple close calls. Why would you spin me up?
Why the Reds?
10 minutes left. You couldn't leave it alone for 10 minutes.
No, I couldn't. Why the Red Sox? They used to be the Boston Americans, correct?
They used to be the Boston Americans.
Now the Boston Americans, they are in Massachusetts, a liberal state.
Who called in for their politics?
So they didn't want to be the Americans anymore because that's too American, and it is Massachusetts. Hang on, let me finish my theory. And then they had Red Sox, like the communists. What do you think? Is that how?
No, and
enlighten me.
So when they were the Boston Americans, the Braves were in town. When the Braves left out of town, they wanted to be a different team. So they pretty much swapped over to the Red Sox. The reason they wore the Red Sox is because that's just the color of the stockings that they had always worn.
So they were actually Red Sox.
Yeah. And they played
so it's actually quite literally.
Is that what BU is before they went over to Fenway? And that's the whole reason. You know?
So it's actually a literal.
It's a very literal meaning. It has nothing to do with their politics. Sorry about that. So, why would you? We were on. I don't know why you do that to me. I don't know why I let you do that to me.
Now hang on.
Throw me a curveball.
Exactly, baseball.
You should see the chat room. It looks like the deck of the Titanic is clearing out so quick.
Bye. So I'm not playing the violin. Now the Oakland A's have a weird mascot.
They're the elephant. And can you explain to me how and where that came from? And I know we only have a few minutes.
The white elephant? Are you really? You're going to put me on the spot with something obscure like the white elephant? Okay,
I'm going to put you on the spot because for the first-time listeners, I work with an encyclopedia on this show, and I know he knows why, and it's gross.
Well, hang on.
You can pull this out right now.
The Oakland Athletics, they started in Philadelphia.
Yes.
They were the Philadelphia Athletics in 1901. And no, it's not time for that. No, stop. So at the time, the Giants were in New York, and the manager, John McGraw, didn't like this brand new team, the A's. He hated them, and he called them the White Elephants because white elephant it's a curse. Some cultures, white elephants are considered sacred, and so if you had a white elephant, you had to pay to maintain the white elephant and to allow people to come in and worship the animal, and it would quite literally cause people to go broke. And so if a wealthy ruler or somebody that wanted to basically give somebody a burden, didn't like them for whatever reason, they would gift them a white elephant, and it would be just a huge burden. So the New York Giants manager, McGraw, called the A's the White Elephants, like they were just a burden to the league. And the Oakland Athletics manager at the time, Mr. Mack, just thought that was such inspiration for his team that he immediately adopted the White Elephant as the team insignia. Huh. And that was in 1902, and that same year, the A's won the American League pennant.
Well, see, that's a good story. I did not know that. So thank you for enlightening me.
You're welcome. Thank you for enlightening me about the communist socks or whatever the
you jerk.
Heck they are. Hey, good job, guys. Keep winning.
So now it's time. We only get 7 minutes left, so we're going to wrap up the show. And
no, let's talk baseball.
No, we're wrapping up the show here.
Okay.
Because we do kind of have a huge announcement.
No, let's save it.
No, I want to talk about it.
No, let's save it for when we have a date.
No, I got to throw it out there.
No.
Too bad.
Don't do it. Ba ba ba.
So
ba ba ba.
We haven't figured out the exact date yet. But it's
did you sniff my microphone?
Yeah, exactly. We haven't figured out the exact date yet, but coming up in the next few weeks, we're going to have the author David Limbaugh on the show, which is that's kind of a big deal for us.
I'm very excited.
I am really excited. It's actually going to be probably our first author interview. I don't know, Andrea.
I've written a couple
Andrea
things.
Kay may have written a book or two in her long line of everything else that she's done. And
she needs to call back in.
Is a reporter. Well, I'll talk to her this week. I'll update you on that off the air. Thank you, everyone, for the show tonight. Make sure you check us out, www.sackheadsradio.com. We are on Twitter at Sackheads. Follow us on here. And
then thank you, government, for making this show happen.
Yeah.
No, really, let's think about this, because if you weren't so screwed up, we'd have nothing to talk about.
Yeah, we would be bored out of our minds. If you're tuned in late, check out the replay. Listen to Joe Kaufman's interview. It was a great interview. We appreciate him. To cover one more time our breaking news story that
the Associated Press actually called it.
The Associated Press is now calling it officially that Mitt Romney is going to appoint Paul Ryan as his VP running mate. That's going to happen tomorrow in Norfolk, Virginia at 9 a.m. Eastern Time.
And per the AP, it came from an unnamed Republican source. So the Associated Press is actually saying that is happening.
So you have that. Well, I'm sure we'll talk about that a little bit more next week. Clint, do you have any closing thoughts?
I don't have a thought left in my head.
Welcome to my every single day. I just, like I said, I want to thank, we had a couple of good callers tonight. I really want to thank them. The ones we didn't get to, I apologize.
And the caller who's using drugs, stop.
Yeah,
drugs are going to...
That young man who I'm going to call back about 2 hours
mess
from
you
now
up.
to wake up his parents.
No, you have the information, right?
Yeah.
I hope you're still listening.
I have it written down.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Tune in.
Let's just go over there.
Friday night for the Friday Night Fiasco.
Let's knock on the door.
For my good friend Clint over to my right, this is Sean.
And
Thanks
this is
for
Clint.
listening, and we will talk to you next week.
Good night, America.
Whoa.
We will not be held responsible for any hearing impairments or damage caused to you from excessive exposure to this sound.